Oh, came right in, burning my mouth. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. How's it going, everybody? I am just here today really briefly to talk about the pay gap, something that is kind of a controversial topic within men's rights communities. So I feel like I can give a pretty good perspective into it. I'm also just going to make a smoothie for myself. I have a hard time eating, as I kind of talked about a little bit on my TikTok and my Instagram, and this has been a way for me to get back into that. So yeah, first I'm just gonna show you guys what I put in my smoothie really quick, so I'm not in the middle of like a really interesting topic and then have to hit the grinder buzzer thingy. What's that called? A blender. Okay, so first things first is I put water. Just a little bit. I have difficulty with my water intake, so I'm going to put some water in there. Next, I'm going to put a mixture of berries. There's like passion fruit, lots of stuff in here. Is this the first live stream? No, it is not. So I'm going to put some of that in. I'm also going to put some mango in there. Ugh. Just make it kind of like a mango smoothie. A little bit more in there. Bear with me. I'm gonna put some milk in it. I'm going to put some sugar in it. I drank all the yops. Thank you so much for the donation. I drank all the yops, so I'm going to put a yogurt in there as well. And then we are going to put it on there. Now that's if I can find the bottom for it. That is the age-old question. Oh, here it is. All right, so we're gonna stick this lid on there. How's everyone doing today? Tell me where you have a big head. Wow, thank you. Thank you. Okay, anyways, let me know where you're watching from. Tell me what time it is for you. See if you have any twins in there. And yeah, I'm just gonna blend this up. Okay. All right, now I have my smoothie. All right, now let's talk about the pay gap. Something not a lot of people want to talk about, something not a lot of people believe is real. But I'm actually here to tell you that from my perspective, from my research, and a lot of other people's research, people who are far more educated and qualified than myself, the pay gap is real. And to deny that the pay gap isn't real would deny the fact that men work more dangerous jobs. So we know that one of like the greatest forms of male oppression is how many men die in the workplace, right? Like men take up over 90%, like way too much of workplace deaths. So part of the pay gap is the fact that men work more dangerous jobs, they work longer hours, and so effectively they get paid more. Now, that's not everything that goes into the pay gap, but that is a part of it. So I just want to lead with that because I want to really make it known that like to deny that the pay gap isn't real would be to deny that men work incredibly dangerous jobs that would require them to be paid more. Other things that go into it is also benevolent sexism. So benevolent sexism is the idea that's perpetuated towards women, which is really harmful for women and men, but it's the idea perpetuated that women are just inherently good, that we're just sweet. We shouldn't get dirty, we shouldn't get messy, you know, and so women don't typically go for like what society has deemed masculine jobs. Pardon me, I have something in my eye. You know, we know that like underwater welders, for example, incredibly high paying job, mostly men. It's incredibly dangerous because the life, like you are guaranteed to have health effects that will make your life not very pleasant at the end of it. So I don't know exactly what the name of it is, but like that's an example. Women, it is also, studies have also shown that women also don't ask for promotions and raises as much as men do. Now, that doesn't mean that women are just like incompetent and can't ask for things. It would say to me that maybe we need to be implementing into HR, you know, everybody being looked at the same time if they are available for a raise, no matter if you're a man or a woman. Another thing that goes into the pay gap is also when women become pregnant, their value in the workplace is kind of like inherently like, so like, because they have to, you know, they're pregnant, then they have to go on mat leave. And so a lot of the times in the workplace, they're kind of deemed as like no longer useful. Men have also experienced this type of bias. As we know, there are a lot of men that are starting to take paternity leave, which is leave when, you know, you're a dad and you want to be with your baby. And men have started to express that, yes, the promotions that they were up for before they went to like go be a dad, they no longer were available for after. And they felt like that was like kind of shitty because like, why should your workplace value be demeaned just because you want to be a good parent? So, you know, like that's another thing that goes into the pay gap. There are a lot of things that go into the pay gap. It's not as simple as like, you are a woman, so you get paid less than a man. That is illegal to do. Does this still happen? Yeah, I would assume so. Is sexism in the corporate business areas, does that still happen? Absolutely. We have to be really mindful. Now, like I'm a woman, but for the gentlemen that are watching, I want you to really be mindful about the fact that like, you know, not to call you a fish, but like a fish doesn't know that it's in water because it's been in water its entire life. And so sometimes we have to realize or think to ourselves, maybe this isn't something that I've noticed or that I've experienced because it's just not the form of oppression that my gender experiences. Now, that doesn't make all the other forms of oppression that males face any less valid. But it just, you know, just means like sometimes we have to look at that perspective and say, okay, like maybe I'm just not noticing it because this just isn't something that is targeted towards me. But I am here to tell you that yes, the pay gap is certainly real. To deny it is kind of silly. I think that a lot of issues that feminists talk about, I've noticed are not well understood amongst men, and it's not because you guys are stupid. And you guys will ask for an explanation from a feminist community and they'll go, well, I shouldn't have to educate you. I shouldn't have to tell you. Well, then no shit. The people don't want to hear it. They don't think the pay gap is real. They don't want to hear about privilege. They don't understand these things because you're not explaining it to them. A lot of the times when men in society are hearing things like pay gap or privilege or things like that, you guys automatically kind of put a defense up because anytime you hear those words, more often than not, they're being used at you as a weapon rather than you being encouraged to have them as a tool. So I want you to know that it is not your fault. You do not need to feel any sort of male shame because you have a good paying job or whatnot. But for example, I remember being a little girl, my dad was an architectural engineer, and he would take me to these big corporate Christmas parties as a little girl. The whole family would go. And I remember only ever seeing one woman. There was so many men and like only one woman. And it's not that women weren't going to school for engineering. They absolutely were. But when it came to the top positions, it was more often than not men that were being picked. That also goes into the pay gap as well. So to people who are like, this has been disproven many times, I just noticed you're like going into Google is paying their women more and women don't work as many hours. Yeah, so I feel like you're looking at certain sections of the pay gap and being like, oh, the entire thing isn't real. Again, that's just silly. To say that the pay gap isn't real would be to say that men do not work more dangerous jobs and longer hours. And that is part of why the pay gap exists, is because men take the harder jobs. So yeah, they end up at the end of the year getting paid more, and women are taking jobs like teachers, secretaries, things like that. And a lot of that, remember, is due to benevolent sexism, is society's ideology that women should be placed in more caregiving roles, not the dirty roles. So I really want you to think about that. Benevolent sexism is something that we, kind of instill in our children, like accidentally and subconsciously almost. I can give you a great example. At Christmas time, I was at the store with my daughter, 3 years old, and she went towards the Nerf guns, and she was like, "Mommy, I want to play with that." And in my mind, immediately, I was like, "Why do you want to play with the Nerf guns? Come play with the dolls. Don't you want to take care of the dolls?" And I realized immediately that what I was pushing on her was benevolent sexism. I was pushing on her the idea that girls don't play with guns. They take care of girls and like babies and stuff like that, right? So, these problems are so much bigger than just like men get paid more than women because they're men and men are better. And like, I think that there's some feminists that are saying that because they're poorly educated as to what really goes into the pay gap. And when I talk about the pay gap, especially with feminists, I often ask them, I say, when you guys are fighting for equal pay, I want you to remember what you're fighting for. Are you fighting for, women having the same amount of deaths in the workplace as men? Because if women go into the same workplaces, they are most likely going to experience those deaths as well. So are you fighting to make the workplace safer for everybody? Or are you fighting for women to just get paid more without maybe realizing that those people that are getting paid those massive, those the dangerous jobs are effectively risking their life? Now that's when we're talking about the working, hard, dirty jobs, welding, construction, things like that, building sky rises, lots of stuff like that, right? So that's kind of what I challenge to feminists when I talk about the pay gap to them, as I say, you need to keep in mind that remember what you're fighting for. You need to, that's why men's issues is also important for feminism, because you're fighting to be able to do the same jobs as men are. I haven't really researched so much into why they're not getting picked. I do believe it is benevolent sexism. But I always tell them, keep in mind, if you're fighting for that, you realize that those men that are doing those jobs are dying at a faster rate. Over 90% of workplace deaths are men. They're brutal, they're violent deaths. And so keep in mind, is it when women start dying, is that when you're gonna start fighting for equal safety in the workplace? You know what I mean? So then they're kind of stuck being oh, I guess I do have to care about men. Yeah, absolutely, you have to care about men. So just keep in mind, every time you want to say the pay gap was debunked, it's not real. Okay, then I guess it's not real that men work hard jobs that get paid more. I heard someone say she's using reverse psychology. I think that term is often kind of used in a negative way. I would like to say that I'm shifting that Overton window and just kind of saying this is how it is. And sometimes you have to go into the extreme of being well, I guess this is how it is, to kind of shift that window in order, to bring it back to the middle. So it's not so much reverse psychology as much as explaining in a way that you guys can understand and you can relate. And I tread lightly when I say that. I'm not saying you guys are stupid in a way you can understand. But again, keep in mind, we all face different forms of privilege and oppression. And I feel privilege and oppression is explained really well to women, but to men, it's often used as just a weapon. I shouldn't have to explain it to you, realize you have it. And nobody wants to actually sit down and have the conversation, with the pay gap and be hey, the pay gap is real. But it's also because you guys are sacrificing your lives to make this world run, that you guys are getting paid more. I think that that's something that's not really acknowledged. I think feminists need to acknowledge that more. But also, I will say, I have seen men who work in warehouses who work the exact same hours as women. They have the exact same position, and the woman was getting paid more. Why that was happening, I wasn't really sure. But like the pay gap also does affect men as well. So please just like keep in mind that, you know, a lot of these things that affect women also affect men, and the things that affect men also affect women. So we have to tread really lightly whenever we say something isn't real, and we kind of dig our heels into that, because a lot of the time the things that we're denying are also affecting us as well. So I will just take some. Someone said male nurses get paid less. I actually think that that's true. I need to look into that. I'll do a video of like where the numbers are in favor of women and where they're in favor of men, because it definitely crosses both ways. So I just want you guys to please keep that in mind, and please don't be so quick to be like, it's not real, because I think a lot of the times that wall comes up because whenever it's spoken about, it's in a very aggressive and blaming manner. And yeah, someone says she's making all simps. You know, this like language really isn't like tolerated here. Like, I don't know what you think this community is. Some of the people that are like, yo, y'all are simps because you're agreeing, or being like, yes. You know, like your hatred for women is really showing, and men. If you think that a man just like being kind to a woman or agreeing with a woman when she's talking about something smart, oh, because women can do that. Like, if you have a problem with that and you're going to put that man down to inadvertently put that woman down, to be like, oh, she's not, you know, when you're calling them simps, what you're really saying is what I'm saying isn't important. They're not listening to what I'm saying. They're only listening because I'm pretty. So like, that's, you know, that's your misandry and misogyny is really showing, and it's not like, it's really not valued here. This smoothie is delicious. Some women actually appreciate a hardworking man. Absolutely. You know, if I'm a teacher and my husband is an underwater welder, who the fucking right am I to sit there and complain about the fact that he's making more money than me? What? I do appreciate a hardworking man, and there are a lot of women that appreciate hardworking men. And, you know, I think when it comes to the pay gap, I think feminists don't understand it just as much as some men's rights communities don't understand it. You know, I think that some feminists, the majority of feminists, I believe, kind of pick and choose in a way, right? For example, we always say, fuck the patriarchy, unless it's, oh, well, when I get divorced, the man won't give me all the money anymore. Because, like, that's definitely still hindering from patriarchy, the idea that the man takes care of the household. So it's always like, fuck the patriarchy, unless it's I can have a kid and, like, make the man pay for it the whole life, you know? It's always like, fuck the pay gap, until you realize that means that women would be dying just as much as men in the workplace. You know what I mean? So, like, I think that there's a huge misunderstanding of just gender equality as it is. And that's where I stand on that. So this live is going on 20 minutes. We got about 2 minutes left. I will answer some quick questions. I found this channel as a dark state of mind. People saying all men should die. I'm really sorry. No, this is a really, this is a really caring community. Unless you're like the random asshole that pops in and is like, you know, accuses me of just like doing this for whatever because I'm pretty, or, you know, calls the guys simps, or views on red pill. You know, one of my biggest frustrations with like the community of men that call me a chameleon is they'll always say that I just like repeat things from like the red pill community. And I'm gonna be 100% honest, and you can shit on me for this if you want. I have never fucking seen red pill. I have never seen it. So the idea that I'm just like spewing, you know, red pill ideologies is kind of funny to me, because I think I've come up with a lot of really new ideas into the men's rights community and developed a lot of ideologies that are now kind of being adopted from like smaller men's rights communities that I'm seeing. So I've never seen Red Pill. Like Jordan Peterson, for example, is not like a fan of mine. I just ordered one of his books that I intend on reading. But that's, you know, I think I watched one video of his where he said that he regretted calling MGTOW like spineless losers or something. So I just kind of laugh at that a little bit because, you know, I didn't just wake up one day and just see somebody and be like, I'm gonna do this. You know, I've been around guys my entire life. I grew up with guys as, you know, as a teenager. Guys accepted me, girls didn't. They treated me like shit. They called me a slut. They called me a whore. They called me anything that they could. And the guys accepted me. So I hung out with guys. I got to see their version of the world in their eyes, not in what society had told me to believe. And I saw, you know, the sexism in every single aspect, even when it came down to like the police. You know, they would be having their heads slammed on the front of the hood, and the police would be asking me if I wanted a cigarette. You know, like it wasn't fair. And so I like, these ideologies, these are things that I've been talking about since before you guys knew my name. You know, I didn't just wake up one day and was like, I'm gonna make a whole bunch of money and do this. I'm very lucky that God gave me what he did, and he gave me the tools that I need to be able to do this. And that is where I'm blessed. So, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I love you guys all very much. And whether you like me, whether you hate me, I really hope that you think about what was said here today. And, you know, I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're being good to yourself. And gentlemen, before I go, I want to remind you something, which I like to remind at the end of every single live, which is, despite the fact that society has told you that your problems are your problems, nobody wants to hear about it. Nobody wants to, definitely no one wants to hear about it. But you are going to have to fix and help everybody else with your problems, with their problems, pardon me. That's something that's been constantly, you know, almost reiterated to me in my life, just from being around guys. And I realize that it's reiterated to like almost every man that, you know, shut up about your problems. Nobody wants to fucking hear it. But by the way, you need to be there to solve everybody else's problems. And I want to tell you that that's going to leave you miserable. It's going to leave you alone if you aren't already. And it's just going to leave you feeling like the world is taking everything from you and not giving you anything in return. That is not fair. That's really sad. And I want you to know that there is somebody in your life that wants to hear your story, that wants to hear you talk, and wants to hear you when you say, I'm feeling sad right now. So with that being said, I have to go pack for something. So I will talk to you guys later, and thank you so much for joining. Y'all are kings. For those asking what this is a smoothie.